Let's talk about the Cannondale Habit. This is actually a new bike. Cannondale just redid the Habits this spring and dropped this bike. So this is the Habit LT, and I'm here with Justin.
I'm Justin, I'm known as East Bay Rippers, and I'm extremely excited to get on board with Mike's Bikes, start creating some content. They have me out here today in Nevada City, and I'm riding the Cannondale Habit LT. Awesome.
Well, let's get into it. So this is the new Habit LT, the long travel version. There's also a regular Habit, but the LT is a 150, 140 bike and a 64.7 degree head angle. This bike feels like it might be a ripper. So here's how we're gonna do this. We have broken down these bikes into 5 categories: climbing, descending, handling, pedaling efficiency, and value. You have 100 points and you've been able to divvy them up and award the points to the different characteristics based on how you felt about the bike. You ready to get started?
Let's get started.
All right, so let's start with climbing. You gave this a 12, a little bit on the lower side. Why?
I had to steal points from climbing because there's some really high categories later on.
Yeah.
This bike, LT, stands for long travel, is definitely made for me because it is long travel. It doesn't pedal as good as some of the other bikes. I didn't think it pedaled bad. I think that it had a lot of traction and it felt appropriate for a bike of this category. It just didn't stand out in any way in terms of climbing performance.
It's a little bit on the slacker side for some of the other bikes that we have been riding. So did that affect you negatively, kind of uphill, steep switchbacks, or kind of getting up on stuff, being so far behind the rear wheel?
No, not so much. I would say that probably more of it just being longer. It was just a little bit more unwieldy in the corners. But because of the steep seat tube angle, it was comfortable and I was able to weight the front when I needed to. It just was a little bit long and slack.
Yeah, let's get to the good stuff. You went pretty high here at 32 on the descending. I've watched your face twitch into smiles in anticipation of talking about this, so you go.
Yeah, I mentioned before that I am an enduro rider. This bike is a long travel bike, even at 140, 150, but it doesn't feel like a trail bike. It feels much like an enduro bike. I would say that this bike is the enduro rider's trail bike of choice. Immediately when I sat on it and started going downhill, I was like, this is the bike. This thing is gonna go downhill, it's gonna go fast. I was finding alternate landings and jumping over things that I probably wouldn't on other trail bikes. So it was just super confidence inspiring. I had to rank it really high for descending.
Awesome. Describe an alternate landing for those of us.
Yeah, so when you have a jump, you've got a lip and then you've got a landing, and if you find a pocket off to the side or something maybe that's a bump past it, that's where this bike was landing. I was going faster, I was pulling up harder, and it was taking it with ease.
Yeah, it's less travel than an enduro bike, so how did that feel when it kind of got bumpy, or did it ever get overwhelmed?
No, it did not get overwhelmed. I would love to try this bike on some other trails as well, but if you were to blindfold me and toss me on this thing, I would say that it was a much longer travel bike.
So it rode like a bigger bike?
Yeah, it definitely rides more like an enduro bike.
Yeah, awesome, sounds exciting. So as far as handling goes, you kind of went right down the middle there with 20. Handling lends itself to the descending that you were talking about, but also kind of more specific to in and out of corners, uphill handling, and on kind of flats where you have to put the power in. So talk about the handling and why that was pretty neutral for you.
Yeah, I felt like the bike handled well. It didn't stand out really in terms of handling overall. It does feel like it's a bike made for descending, you know, with the cockpit a little bit higher.
So it needs some speed to kind of come to life.
Yeah, exactly. So with some more tweaks, I think, and some more time on the bike, I could increase handling performance, but just out of the box, I felt like it wasn't maybe set up just perfect to rank higher than 20 in terms of handling. Got it.
So maybe not surprising, giving the climbing score of 12. You also gave pedaling efficiency a score of 12. So pedaling efficiency, you know, in our sort of world is not just climbing, but also kind of jumping on the gas and giving it some power. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a little bit about the compression of the rear shock. If I could have added some low speed, which that doesn't have here, it would have been maybe a little bit more efficient. But overall, I didn't think it was extremely inefficient. It just didn't stand out as something that I would write home about it. Exactly, yeah.
So on value, you ranked this pretty high, actually higher than anybody else ranked you know, their bikes in terms of value. So kind of talk about what stood out to make this bike so valuable.
Yeah, I just think overall it was the cost for the build. I really liked the suspension. I think that it was easy to set up. It worked really well. I don't think I would change it if this was my bike. It's got a carbon bar as well, GX drivetrain. I really think that people are maybe gonna make subtle tweaks So overall, this is going to be...
But not like a glaring weakness.
Exactly, yeah. You know, you're not going to buy this bike for a 5100 and then go spend thousands more on upgrades.
Right.
I really like the frame. The overall construction of it is really robust. So I think that it's a really good deal at a 5100.
Yeah. You called this bike the Enduro Rider's Trail Bike. So maybe this is a redundant question, but who would you recommend this bike for?
Yeah, because of its long and slack nature, I'm probably not going to recommend it to a first-time mountain biker or someone that's, you know, entering into the trail realm. It's very much on that long, low, slack treatment.
You need to be good to really let the bike realize its potential.
Yeah, I think if you like going downhill fast and you're going to be riding blacks, double blacks, jump lines, this is definitely a bike for you. So yeah, maybe you have big trails in your backyard and you need a bike that still will pedal well and is light, and this bike right around 33 and a half is definitely going to check that box for you. So I'm not going to be surprised if we see a lot more of these on the trail.
Right.
And I think that people who maybe don't want to tote around a 38, 40-pound enduro bike are going to lean into something like
maybe
this.
somebody that's been an experienced mountain biker, they've been riding trail bikes for a while, and maybe their trail bike is 3 or 4 years old. We know how much trail bikes have changed, and this has a ton of capability in it. So, they want to take the progression in their riding on the aggressive stuff, but maybe don't want to take that full jump to an enduro bike because they still need to pedal the thing around and get everywhere.
Exactly.
Well, if you are curious to find out more about the Habit LT, pop into our stores here in Northern California, or we've got stores in Denver, or hit us up online, mikesbikes.com. We'd love to explain more and talk to you about the bike. So thanks, and thanks, Justin.
Thanks for having me.